Let's continue our science lab up in the air, but we're going to come out of the clouds for just a moment. As temperatures start to warm up across North America, animals will begin their spring migration back north. So why do animals, and especially birds, migrate for the winter? Let's bring in our friend, Inspector Planet, Dr. Tracy Fanara with more. And Tracy, let's start with the basics. Why do animals migrate?
That's a great question. We see animals migrate every year. It's cyclic. They might do it annually from winter to summer. And the reason why they do it is for better food sources, for habitat protection, because of predation or disease. There are many reasons that an animal might migrate.
So the birds are following their food source, which means that they're eating cold-blooded animals, right, and insects that have gone south ahead of them. Now, a lot of animals migrate, but I feel like we always think of birds when we first hear the word migrate. How many birds would you say make this trip?
Out of the 10,000 species of bird, about 4,000 migrate.
Wow, 4,000 species migrate.
Yes.
And then think of how many birds are within that species, right?
A ton of birds.
Yeah, some birds migrate really far distances. How far do the farthest birds migrate?
Oh, there's one species of bird that can actually go all the way from the Arctic all the way down to the Antarctic, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And it's risky.
Let's talk about how they know when to start migrating. Is it a pressure? Is it a temperature thing? Or just lack of food, like, oh, our food's gone south, it's time for us to go too?
There are many different factors, and those are some of them. It also has to do with the daylight hours. There's an endocrine or hormonal change, a chemical change that happens in their bodies that starts to tell them to start eating a lot and bulking up for this long trip. So it's the temperature, it's the daylight, and the food as well.
So how do they know where to go? And does that change over time? Or is it just something that's been, ingrained in them over the centuries?
So some scientists believe that it's basically in their DNA, but a lot of birds can sense those temperature changes, the magnetic fields. They can use the sun as a navigation tool. And then the birds that have already made that migration pattern, they might look for landmarks or actually use their sense of smell.
Huh. Interesting. All right. We typically see birds travel in V formation. I always think of the mighty ducks when I hear that V formation, right? Let's talk about how that helps birds travel and how we mimic that in our lives too sometimes.
Yeah, and it's great that you just talked about pressure. So there are 4 different forces of flight. There is lift, there is thrust, and that helps them get through the air, but there's also weight and drag. So their lift and thrust has to outpower their weight and drag. So when birds fly, they cause a low pressure area right above them where the pressure stays high below. And it starts to create a vortex of wind. And in that vortex, there's a little bit of lift just at the back and outside. So when birds fly in a V, they can actually save energy and they leader.
And race car drivers do that too. You get a little draft. They're kind of like drafting right off each other. Dr. Tracy Fanara, thank you so much for joining us this morning.